Hi everyone, it's Patty the Quiet Sister. Welcome back or welcome to my channel. For today's card share, I am making a floral card using, actually two floral cards using Simon Says Stamped Wild and Free Flowers, some Gina K Masking Magic, and my Zig Real Clean Color markers. So let's get started. So first I stamped all the florals on Gina K's Masking Magic and got those cut out. I ended up not using all of the Masking Magic florals that I cut out, but I did just throw them in the packet with the stamp set so that I could use them at a later date. So for today, I'm using two really old school techniques to do the backgrounds on these cards. So the first flower, as I said, I'm using my Zig Real Brush Clean Color markers. And I'm just flicking the color on and I'm going darkest to lightest. So for the red flowers, I used deep red, geranium red, and red, and then I blended it out using my water brush marker. And so at first I just used two colors, and then I went back in and brought in the deeper red because I wasn't getting enough contrast between all the colors. And I'll do a couple of petals for you in real time, and then I'm going to speed it up. So I'm using Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper, and it works fine. I do like other watercolor papers better, but I wanted to use up my stash. Like I said, it works fine. It's not the worst that I've ever used. It's not the best either, but it is a nice bright white. I think that's its best property, is that it is a nice bright white. But I do prefer the Strathmore, honestly, and there's some cold press. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's like AC, I think it's from AC Moore watercolor paper that works really well too. And then Bristol Smooth. I always have good luck with Bristol Smooth cardstock. That blends really well too with these markers. So anyway, I am carefully flicking on the flower with my darker red, being sure to go around the middle of the flower and not color over it. I did color in the middle with some darker browns, and now I'm going in with my lighter red, which would be just the color red, and then I'll go over it with the water brush marker again. So this stamp set is wonderful in the way that it has the details on it where you should highlight and where you should shade. Very, very helpful. The darker lines really, really help. Just shade along those lines. Same thing in the leaves. It shows you where it should be bright and where it should be dark, but you can do whatever you want. It's not graded. It's just what makes you happy. And as we've said before, there is no one who's going to get a handmade card and say, oh, your lighting is off, your shading is off. They're just going to appreciate the beauty of the card. So now I'm doing this at warp speed, just to show you the coloring, but not to force you through the putsy slow speed that I color with. The entire coloring took me 45 minutes, which is really long for me. I don't like putting a lot of time into a card because I'm very real that it's probably just going to get thrown away. Sad to say, except for my husband. He keeps everything. He's so wonderful about it. But most people, they'll probably just throw it away, which doesn't make me mad. It just makes me be real about, how much effort or how much time I should put into the card. There I'm coming in with the darker red to make the shadows deeper. And I really like those three colors together. It turned out beautifully. So now I'm doing the bud. The bud almost looks like a peony bud. And the flower almost looks like a knockout rose, except for the stamen in the middle. But it can be whatever you want. It could be a beautiful wildflower, since that's, the name of the stamp. And so then I do go in with other colors, the smaller flowers in the background that kind of remind me of wildflowers that you see on the roadside here in Minnesota. And those are typically yellow, and you start seeing them in August. Some people call them ragweed, and there's another name for them too. I just think it's so pretty to see wildflowers. So for the yellow wildflowers, I used a light brown. And again, I'm just flicking from the center of what the petaled flowers outward. And then if the open flowers, I should say, and then using the medium color, the bright yellow, and then going over all of that with the yellow. I didn't use the water brush on this because the flowers are so small. And then for the closed flowers or the side view flowers, I used the light brown at the base and then used the bright yellow to go up from the base of the flower and then the yellow to do the tips of the flower. So if they were open, I started in the middle. If they were closed or a side view, I started at the base. And so it looks kind of sunflower-ish, kind of black-eyed Susan-ish. So then, again, we're at warp speed coloring those in. But I was going to say, we used to live in Texas, and there is no more beautiful month than April in Texas. With all of the wildflowers, we used to just drive. We lived in South Dallas area called Cedar Hill, and we would just drive and get out in the country. And Cedar Hill was country then. I think it's all built up now. And just really get out there, and we had to watch for rattlesnakes and stuff, but it was beautiful just walking through the wildflowers. So here for the leaves, I did the regular green and then a May green, which is a little bit of a yellow green, and then light green, which is just that, a really light green. And I do go over this big leaf a couple times. So I use all three colors and then I try to blend it with the water brush, and I worked on it until it got to the point where I liked it. Coloring leaves is hard for me. My sister Jane can do it, not a problem. I can't do it. Although this one did turn out okay. So now I'm in with the light green. And you can see there wasn't a lot of differentiation between the three colors. So I go back in with the darker green again, trying to get the highs and lows on the leaves. And I think by my third go round, I got it just the way I wanted it. And I do like the watercolor look. Using the water brush really helps kind of get some of those highs and lows because it thins it out in some areas. And there I just wiped off the water brush on my cloth to get the green paint off of it. You don't see it on camera, but that's what I did. And then I assumed that part would be a highlighted area because it's turned over so the sun would get it. It would be highlighted. So just darkening it up a little bit more. And now I'm letting it dry and moving on to other leaves. And I'll do those faster then because I did show you how I colored the first leaf. So in this stamp set, there's a lot of great sentiments. And some of these are the what I consider the harder sentiments for people that are going through a tough time, or sympathy sentiments. You know, you can put hugs on a card, but sometimes you want to send them healing thoughts. You know, let them know that that's how you're thinking, that you're sending prayers. So it's really nice to have a sentiment that kind of covers those harder, what I consider harder cards, maybe a little more emotional, sad cards, but just those little things that really make people appreciate you as a friend, getting those sentiments on a card. So then just finishing up the last two leaves, and then I'll have to do the little leaves on the wildflowers that are in the background, the yellow flowers. And those leaves took no time at all. I think I only used 2 colors on those because they're so small. You can't really see them. You're not going to be able to see a great bit of detail on them. Sorry, I'm a little off camera there, but just I'm using the middle color and just coloring them all in, not doing a whole lot to them. And then now I'm coming with the darker color and just at the bases are where I think it really needs a little bit of shadow, just the base of the leaf, and flicking in the color on those leaves. And then I must have missed a flower, so I'm coloring that in, getting it done again, just flicking. And so the coloring part is done. Get rid of those. So now here's the old school technique. And it's something that, I don't know, at least 7 years ago we would do. And I still do it now, but it was more popular. I saw it more back then. Is you would just go around, once you've colored your image, you would go around it with a darker color. And you could use whatever dark color you want. I always like blues and grays. And then lighten the color outward. So the dark color is intense around the image, and then you lighten it as you go out. So here I'm outlining the image, and you don't want to go too far because then you can't lighten it as well because the ink is absorbed in the paper, so you can't move it as well. So outlining these little wildflowers and then coming in with my water brush and moving the color out to the outside of the image, or even in between a few things. And so it's a little tedious, but I enjoy it, and it makes the image pop, especially because in my mind I was going to put vellum over this, and I did put vellum over this. So I wanted brighter colors that would show through, and I wanted the image really highlighted so that you could see everything through the vellum. So I'm just going to do around the wildflowers so you kind of get the gist of what's going on here. I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole card because that probably took a while as well. But yeah, just a little outlining and then the moving of the color. And I believe for this I used Zig's Deep Blue and the Cornflower Blue to lighten up in some areas. It turned out kind of looking like a storm cloud. I almost hated to cut it down, but I wanted to have the certain design in mind, so I did execute it as planned. I'm glad it turned out. I would have been really mad if it didn't turn out after all of this work. Okay, so this then, the other panel, again, this is on distress watercolor paper, and I'm starting off the middle of the flower. I was coloring this like a black-eyed Susan, even though it's not a black-eyed Susan. I really like, those are kind of my favorites, and I love seeing them in August. In Minnesota, in August is when they bloom. So coloring it in, and I used deep brown for that, or just brown, I'm sorry, regular brown for that. And then this is the regular brown. I started off with light brown, and I wanted a little more contrast at the base where the stamen are. And then the same thing on this as I did with all the other flowers. I'm going in with the darkest color at the middle, and we're just going to flick color in. We're not doing anything fancy. And then when I've flicked what I think is an appropriate amount, I'll move on to the next. And on this one, I did several petals in one color at once because I was kind of get the feel of my markers again. I hadn't used them in a couple years, and so I was kind of getting the feel of them again. So I was able to do a couple petals at once and then come in with the middle color and go over it, and it didn't dry on me. So then this would be, again, the bright yellow, and it's a little bit of an orangish yellow. And I would wipe off the tip of the brush. If you see my hand leave, I'm wiping it on some scratch paper that I had off to the side to get some of that brown off, because when it moved the color, it got on the brush and it was changing the color a bit and making it more tan. So I needed to wipe that off the brush and then to get fresh color. And now I'm moving to the last two leaves using the light brown. And again, the illustrations, those dark lines are so helpful as to where we should flick our darkest color. I mean, obviously always in the middle, because that's always where it's darker, but just the highs and lows of the leaves, it's really helpful. And then again, coming in with the bright yellow, the orange yellow. And there I had to rotate. And getting that to blend out a little bit. And then coming in with just the regular yellow. Getting all those, see, I had to wipe it off. It was getting dark. So this flower was really quick to color. As you can see, I'm doing it in real time. I think all in all it was 15 minutes. That's normally about what I like to spend coloring, even though it relaxes me. Like I said, the throwaway factor is quite real. So for this card, I did end up masking it to do the other old school technique that we've been doing. So, I don't know, it's been at least 20, 25 years that I've been doing this masking technique. It's not new. Although we used to use, I think it was called Molo masking fluid. So you would take, it was a marker. You would color your image, let it dry, and then you would draw over it with this marker, this masking fluid, and then do whatever background design you wanted to do. And then you'd have to rub off the Moltow liquid. And you know, it worked pretty well, but sometimes you'd end up rubbing, especially if you had really saturated your paper with color, rubbing off some of the paper. So that got a little frustrating. So that's how I colored the yellow. And then the green leaves I'd already shown you. So now I'm drying it as much as I can to get the masks on, because if it's wet, they're not going to stick. And I have to tell you, I didn't dry it all the way, and I did have a little bit of mask sticking trouble, especially on that little leaf right there. But it wasn't too bad, but that's my fault because I didn't let it dry all the way. So masking over the image, trying to peel off the backing, and that last leaf was giving me a problem. But I saved all the backing and put it back on the masks when I was done with them, because I will reuse them. And so now I'm going to come in, I'm using my Catherine Pooler inks. This was Flirty Fuchsia, so this is kind of the purpley pink, one of my favorite colors of hers. And I'm not being real careful because the paper and the ink smooth out so well that although I did get a big blob right there, smooth out so well. So I have 3 colors, so you want to divide it kind of visually in thirds, and I was doing a graduated color, but you also want to go a little bit into the next color's territory so you can blend back over it and create additional colors. In this Flirty Fuchsia with the Something Borrowed, the blue, the medium blue, I loved the blended color together. It was so pretty. So pretty. So cleaning up my mess, coming in with my next color, Something Borrowed, and doing the same thing. And sorry about being off camera. I was scrubbing my brush there. Just coming in and blending over the flower. And so that color where they both meet, I love that color. It's so pretty. And I wasn't worried too much about the edges because I knew I was going to be cutting this out. So the dark edges didn't bug me, but I actually ended up deepening the edges because I kind of liked that look as well. But I did end up cutting it out. I'm just going back with the Flirty Fuchsia just to get that really good blend and get that in between or mixed color there. And then cleaning up my mess, and then we'll come in with the darker blue. And so the darker blue is kind of a navy blue. It's called Dress Blue by Catherine Pooler. It's a beautiful navy. It's my favorite navy of all the navies that I have, because it's not like the midnight dark navy, but it is a nice dark color. So as you can see on the leaves, I had a little bit of trouble with the masks because I didn't dry it properly. So then I decided to just go all around the edges with the deep blue. And I did like how that looks. Look how pretty the deep blue is mixed with the Flirty Fuchsia. It's so pretty. And then again, going back in with the Something Borrowed just to get those 2 colors to mix well. Yeah, I'm leaving the masks on because I want to do additional techniques on the background, or an additional technique on the background. So I went and found, and it took me forever because I hadn't used it in so long. I went and found my Dr. Martin white and dug some of that out with a spatula and put it on my work surface, and then added some water. And I don't know why I did not go and get my splatter box, because I had white splatters everywhere. I mean, 2 feet away on my lap, on my iPad, there was white splatters. And then also on my sweatshirt and also on my chair. It was just, I don't know what I was doing, but I was making white paint fly. So just getting little splatters on there just to add a little something. And then cleaned up my mess, took the mask off. And the masks worked really great, but I didn't, I tried to cut inside the lines of the mask, but there was a couple of spots where the mask was on the background and you can see white lines. So to deal with the white spaces, I used my Zig clean color, Real Brush clean color marker in cornflower blue, scribbled it on my glasswork surface, added a little water and a really thin paintbrush, and just kind of filled in, and it worked perfect. And if I didn't have a marker that matched it so well, I could have just taken something borrowed, the middle ink, and just stamped a little on my glasswork surface, add a little water, and use that to paint around the flowers as well. It was just a little bit lighter if you water down the ink, but for the Zig marker watered down was the perfect color. So that took care of that issue. And so there's no more white outline around anything. Okay, so I'm cutting out using the waffle flower nested domes die cuts, cutting out, and I decided I wanted it smaller. Cutting out the red floral. I'm going to put that under glass. So cutting out the red floral, and then I'm going to take some vellum, and I get that from the local paper store, and some scrap gold cardstock. I believe it was from a project I did using Recollections Gold. Cut out the topper, cut out the base out of the gold, and then some vellum. There's the topper, vellum paper that I have that I bought at the local scrapbooking store. And it's really good vellum, really thick. I really like it. It works great for techniques as well. So getting that cut out, kind of checking it out. And then I embossed the back panel. I think everyone's seen people emboss, so I wasn't going to make you watch it, using Simon Says Stamps Blossom Field Embossing Folder. And again, that's another product I've had for a couple years, never used. So we're getting into using our things. We're also purchasing new things, but we're using our things. And then for the sentiment, I used, I believe it was Sending Love and Hugs. Yes, and using Brutus Monroe Gilded Embossing Powder. And then heat setting that. And then I will use Simon Says Stamps Nested Banners. That is one of, what I consider my essential sets. Because it's perfect for cutting out sorry about my hair. And my hair gets in the way. My big head gets in the way several times during this, trying to get things lined up properly. Good thing I colored my roots. But anyway, the set is an essential for cutting out sentiments. It just does such a great job. And as you can see, they're long, but you can use them for short sentiments as well. So, and I wanted to put the sentiments in the upper left corner because there's no florals there. There's no design there at all. So just kind of putting it in there, filling the space. And then that will complete. I popped them up, just giving them a little dimension. But then that'll finish off this card. I do add embellishments later, so I guess I just lied. Sorry. I add pearl embellishments to this. And so now to finish off my other card, I'm using the Waffle Flowers A2 set of dies, rectangle dies. And so I used the fourth one to cut out the floral panel from the top, from the largest. And then the third one from the largest to cut out the black panel so that I could have a nice border. And then that's my card base. And I'm gluing this on, and then I will trim down my card base on the bottom and on the right side to get the border that I want for my card base. So it's a little bit smaller. I think I took off 1/8 of an inch on each side. Then A2, but close enough to A2. And then I stamped, sorry, I'm out of frame again, the With Deepest Sympathy using VersaFine black ink. And then I embossed it using Hero Art's Fine Detail black embossing powder. So I do really like how these turned out. And then I'm using some Hero Art stamp cleaner. That is the best stuff. Okay, so here's the 2 cards. And I'm fetching my embellishments, trying to decide what I want to do. And I decided white and gold on both of those cards would probably be the best due to the nature of the cards. And then just looking at the Deepest Sympathy, I played around with stuff, but I decided I didn't want to add anything else to it. Just keep it simpler. And so on this one, I'm putting the pearls on as if they're like studs on the base of the dome there. Kind of loving that look. And then put one on the handle and then trying to align them a little better. And then those were Hero Arts small pearls. And then I'm grabbing the Studio Katia white pearl embellishments and putting them throughout the dome there. And I'm using my Pink Fresh Studio little grabby tool there. And it worked great. And then I had lifted up the vellum a little bit and glued behind the pearls so that the vellum would glue to the floral background. And it worked great for that. So those are the finished cards. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed watching the video and learning about the old school backgrounds that we created when I was young. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Have a great day.